Keep the one thing that fills you up, the one thing that says, I'm still a person, not just a patient. Hola, welcome to Sana Sana podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'm a first-generation Cuban-American woman, breast cancer survivor, and mother of 5. I'm also a certified professional coach. Sana Sana is dedicated to you, Hispanic and Latina breast cancer survivors who've always been the strong ones and now feel lost in their identity after cancer diagnosis. Every week, I'll be sharing the foundation of my ecosystem of healing coaching process, which I use to help my clients restore trust in their bodies, release perfectionism, advocate for themselves, and live from a place of healing and peace rather than survival. Tune in to hear my real-life experiences, carving a new path for myself after remission, but helping my coaching clients carve a new path for themselves too. So after my diagnosis, I did something that gave me momentum and reduced the feeling of overwhelm. I bucketed, if you will, my life into 4 areas. And I wasn't trying to be ruthless or clinical, but the alternative was trying to hold everything at once. And that wasn't possible anymore after the diagnosis. So there were 4 buckets, and for each one, there were 2 lists: keep and toss. What stays and what goes. What's best for me right now. So this is an ever-evolving list, and toss may sound kind of mean, but it was intended to help me and can help you in the moments after diagnosis and through treatment. So let's start with bucket 1. Bucket 1 was work. The reality was that I couldn't just stop working during treatment or after my diagnosis, and that's the reality for most of you, my cancer survivor sisters. That's the truth. So I think I've shared before that while I could have taken an extended leave from the time treatment started to the time it concluded, including chemo, surgery, and radiation, it was about a 9-month span. So I wasn't going to be able to take 9 months off of work, nor did I want to. I needed to keep working during all the time of treatment and really limit days off to the days that I couldn't perform or work or even get out of bed because of the after effects of chemo, because I wasn't feeling well, because I didn't have the strength. But I also could not report to the office every day. I was about to start chemo during flu season. My first chemo session was September 30th of 2016. And that meant that I was going to be immunocompromised, and being around other people's germs and flu germs specifically, it wasn't just a comfort thing or something that was uncomfortable. It could, if I got sick, it could delay treatment, and I could get more sick than the normal person does during flu season. So work stayed on the keep list, but reporting to the office went to the toss list. And my boss gave me the green light to work from home through chemo, surgery, and recovery from that. And when radiation started, I was able to return to the office. I still had some flexibility. I had radiation every morning, Monday through Friday, very early, like at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I would report to radiation, and then once I was finished, I'd report to the office. What's the lesson here? It's important to negotiate for the most flexibility possible if that's what's best for you. Not everyone has the same options. Not everyone has the same treatment either. But most people have more room to negotiate than they assume. And I want you to take a minute right now, and if you've got your journal nearby, grab it, or if you've got a piece of paper or your notes app on your phone, and think about this question. What on your work list right now could go on the toss pile, even temporarily? Like I've shared before, while I was working from home through chemo and surgery and recovery from surgery, I did not bring all of my work portfolios with me. And that was a lesson in and of itself, because the one or two things that I kept for working from home kept me busy full time. But I was able to say I'd like to hold on to this work, and then the rest was delegated out or spread out to other people at the office. So what on your work list right now could go into the toss pile, even if it's temporary, to give you more energy for treatment? What would you need to negotiate, and with whom? Take a minute to jot those questions down. And if you want to pause the podcast right now and write your answers out, that's great. If not, you can keep going and get back to it later. So bucket 2, extracurriculars. This bucket did require some ruthlessness, I'm not going to lie. And it also produced one of the best memories of my whole cancer season. So on the toss side, keeping extra activities to a bare minimum was essential for me, for my husband, who was also my caregiver, and for all the people who were supporting us. We wanted to keep it simple. And so the rule was, if a sister, a sibling, in-law, an adult child, or a close friend couldn't cover an after-school activity or a church function or a fundraiser or whatever the event was, then it went to the toss pile for that season of life. I had to save time and energy for treatment and for the kids still at home, and extend that same courtesy to the people that were supporting us. So keep it simple was the rule. And even in the midst of that, there was one, not an extracurricular, but it was an activity that I had volunteered for before I was diagnosed, before I knew that I was going to be sick that school year. I was scheduled to read aloud with my 3-year-old son pre-K class during the holiday season. And I don't remember if I'd signed up for more than one, but there was one particular read aloud that I really wanted to do because it was close to Christmas. And I dressed up. I dressed up as one of Santa's elves. I had a green wig. I had the plastic elf ears. And I went to my son's classroom. I sat at the front of the classroom near the Christmas tree while the kids huddled on the floor a safe distance away. Again, flu season, and I was already immunocompromised. There was probably about 2 or 3 chemo sessions in by then. And I had so much fun. I made up my face really, extra. I got a much needed boost, about 2 months into chemo. And I created a happy holiday memory with my youngest son during a genuinely crappy time for me and the family. And he just thought it was brilliant. He laughed when he saw me dressed up. I surprised him, and his classmates laughed. And I had, by that point, our 4 older children had all been through that school, so I knew a lot of the teachers in the administration, and they made space for me, and they made it safe for me to keep this extracurricular activity. And yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a memory that I still hold on to 10 years past, that time. And there was a really great lesson for me in that experience, which is keeping extracurriculars to a minimum is not the same as eliminating joy. Keep the one thing that fills you up, the one thing that says, I'm still a person, not just a patient. And again, I want you to take a minute and pull your journal close and write this down. What is your green wig Santa's elves moment? The one thing that you refuse to give up, not because it's practical, but because it reminds you who you are, and because it brings joy to you, to your loved ones, to someone close to you that's walking through this season with you. Bucket 3, family and friends. And you may be thinking, what you made a list of family and friends to keep into toss? This bucket connects directly to episode 11, so I'm not going to really go deep into it, but I just want to thread it in here briefly. The family and friends bucket required constant review. It wasn't a one-time decision or a one-time list. I made the decision, as I've said before, to protect my peace as part of my treatment protocol. So if anybody shared a negative cancer outcome or story, I just silently moved them to a temporary, I hate to say toss pile, but I temporarily tossed them into a do not disturb pile, right? I put them on red, I guess is the way the kids would say it now. I already had enough fears and worries of my own. I didn't need other people's in there too. And for this bucket, I enlisted the help of my dear husband. If someone on that do not disturb list called or asked to visit, he would run interference for me. And like I said, this wasn't permanent. It was time limited and intentional. There are folks that are just super well intentioned and they can't help themselves. They can't help but but kind of verbalize or vocalize their own fears about what you're going through. And those folks need kind of a timeout, at least for me. So, and if you listen to episode 11, you know this part of my story more fully. The short version for today is protecting your peace is not ingratitude or ungratefulness. It is part of your treatment plan. And again, this is another, I think, journal prompt moment here. Who in your life right now is a deposit and who is a withdrawal? Think of it that way. You don't have to act on anything today. Just notice. Maybe talk it over with your primary caregiver, with your therapist, with your coach, whoever you're working with, whoever's helping you during this time. And that brings me to bucket 4, health and fitness. And again, I've talked about this in more than one previous episode. Moving my body, I don't necessarily like to label it as fitness because that comes with, I think, a lot of pressure. But moving my body and engaging in some sort of physical activity is one of my pillars nowadays and was one of my pillars after diagnosis and through treatment and recovery. So I think it was episodes 6 and 8 where I talk about this too, and I kind of want to connect the dots here in episode 12. So the honest starting point was in the 2 or 3 years leading up to my diagnosis, I wasn't taking the greatest care of myself. And I've shared that before. I wasn't active. I wasn't eating well. And what I mean by that is wasn't, eating enough of a variety of foods. I was probably not eating a whole lot of whole foods. I probably wasn't eating enough, really. Primarily it was because of the relentless pace that I kept at work and at home with the kids. And, if you talk to the people who know me well, they will tell you that my whole life is a relentless pace, whether it's, weekend activities or after work activities or the kids. But I wasn't managing that well. I was constantly stressed. I was a workaholic who was running on empty. And after my diagnosis, I put my health and wellness and fitness firmly on the keep list. And I've introduced you all to Stephanie. In prior episodes, I've talked about her, an exercise physiologist at the time. She was a fellow classroom mom at my youngest son's school. And she did the research when I went to her and told her that, I've been diagnosed and I want to work out. She was training some of the moms at the school, and she did research about training and physical activity during cancer treatment. And she personalized my training around that treatment. And of course, I checked with my oncologist and got it all, cleared and blessed by her. And what she found when she did the research, and she shared it with me, which runs counter to what many people assume, including my mom, when she found out that I was going to be intentionally training and increasing my physical activity to include some weight-bearing exercises. She was like, "What are you doing?" Because I think intuitively most people assume that moving less during treatment is more helpful because you need to rest. The reality is that moving less during treatment can contribute to functional decline. And so it was really important for me to move my body. And what I found was that working out gave me more energy. It helped me to feel stronger and more in control of my body. It reduced some of the side effects and some of the pain that came along with the different types of chemo that I received during my 4 months of chemo treatment, and generally helped me feel like less anxious and more optimistic. And I think I've already said, make sure that you get the green light from your oncologist or your medical provider before starting or continuing any exercise program during treatment. That's non-negotiable. And if you want to go deeper on the research behind exercise during treatment and on what Stephanie meant to my survivorship, go back to episode 6. But the short version for today is health and fitness. Go on the keep list, or whatever your version of that is. Physical activity. Your medical team is going to be really preoccupied with how much you eat during treatment, especially if you're undergoing chemotherapy, because you lose your appetite. And so I think at least 10 years ago, I don't know if this has changed today or since, but 10 years ago, my oncologist was worried less about the quality of food, although she was definitely worried about that and definitely talked to me about that. But she was worried less about the quality of food and more about the quantity of food, that she would be happy that I would consume enough calories. Whatever your version is of this bucket, increase physical activity, consume more whole foods, whatever it is for you, it is something that I think needs to go on the stay side of the stay or keep and toss exercise. And so I have a journal prompt for this bucket as well to help you think through what this bucket might mean for you or what it might look like for you. Hi, I'm a 10-year breast cancer survivor. And when I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, I hadn't had a mammogram in 4 years. I thought I could wait. I couldn't. For Latina and Hispanic women, breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, and we're often diagnosed later when it's harder to treat. But early detection changes everything. Today, the guidance is simple. Start mammograms at 40 and don't skip them. And while self-exams aren't a replacement, knowing your body helps you catch changes sooner. So if you've been putting it off, this is your sign. Schedule the mammogram. Know your body. Advocate for yourself, because your life is worth that appointment. What is one thing in the health and fitness bucket that you could keep or even add or reclaim starting this week? Not a big commitment, just one thing. Write it down or jot that question down and come back to it later. And again, I encourage you to go through each of these journal prompts for each of the 4 buckets and talk them over with your oncologist to the extent that it may impact your treatment, with your therapist if you have one, with your primary caregiver, your spouse, your partner, a sibling, a parent, whoever it is that is most closely walking with you during this season. I encourage you to talk to them about these 4 buckets and saying things out loud sometimes, in addition to putting them down on a page, on a piece of paper, is really helpful, I've found. So I'm going to pause here for just a second, because if what we've been talking about is landing for you, is resonating, I want you to know there's somewhere you can take it. If you're a cancer survivor who's always been the strong one, and you're quietly wondering who you are now, that everything has changed, you don't have to figure that out alone. I'm a cancer survivorship coach and fellow survivor, and my coaching practice exists for women exactly like you. If today's episode is resonating and you're ready to go deeper, book a free discovery call at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. The link is in the show notes. Now, the second tool, and this one's for the inside. I like to call this, I wrote an article about this tool, and I called it using your words your inner narrative, or something like that, or your cancer narrative. And this is the inner counterpart to taking stock. So where the buckets and deciding what goes in the keep and the toss pile, the taking stock piece that we just talked about is related to the outer ecosystem, your life, your schedule, your circle. This part is about your inner ecosystem and the language that you use, not just that you use, but the language that lives inside of you during this time. And why does language matter? A good friend of mine, former boss, always used to say words matter. And it matters personally, not abstractly, because after your diagnosis, after my diagnosis, you start absorbing the language of breast cancer, right? Or at least that's what I found myself. Everywhere I looked, Facebook groups, survivor groups, articles, talking to other survivors, and most of it didn't fit for me. It were things like fight like a girl, declare war on cancer, you can beat this, stay strong. And these phrases exist for real reasons, and they have helped countless survivors. So I don't want to knock them, and I'm not dismissing them, but they didn't fit me. And the battle metaphor specifically didn't resonate because in a battle, there are winners and there are losers. And those phrases implied to me that something that I did or didn't do could cause me to lose. Even if I did everything the doctors asked, submitted to every invasive treatment, cancer could still win. And, what would that mean for me? I asked myself, would that make me a loser? And in this, kind of battle, losing, could ultimately mean losing your life. So that framing just didn't sit right for me at any level. And maybe a deeper reason why this language didn't resonate with me is because cancer was in my body. It was part of me, at least for a while. And I didn't want to be at war with my own body. And sometimes when I tell this story to survivors or share it with other people, I add this. At that point in my life where I got diagnosed, I felt like I had been at war with my body for many, many years, primarily because of dieting. In my late 20s, early 30s, when I started having babies again, so I had my first two kids in my early 20s, and then my early 30s to mid 30s, I had my next two kids. My body had changed, and I gained a lot of weight. And I was dieting, and I found myself gaining weight, losing weight, going to the gym as a form of punishment almost, right? Like I ate too much, I need to go work out, or I'm about to, go to a party or an event and I'm going to eat a lot and I need to work out, burn extra calories so that I can have more calories. I was just really caught up in that mess of diet culture and yo-yo dieting and not realizing how harmful it was, not just for my body, but for my psyche. But so I felt like I had already been at war with my body, and I was tired of that. I didn't want to now for that to deepen or become even more intense. And like I said, for me, cancer was part of my body. I wanted it out, and I was willing to do whatever it took for that to happen. But I wanted to also be in relationship with my body and learn how to be at peace with my body. And that was hard, and it was terrifying, but it's what resonated with me and what I felt I needed. So what I found instead of those battle metaphors is that I was living with cancer. That was the frame that fit for me. And at the time, with the help of my coach, I remember acknowledging the cancer cells that had taken up residence in my body. They were like tenants. And I had a conversation with them, and I thanked them for showing up and for pretty early on shining a light on, some of the areas in my life, including putting myself last on my health and wellness, or on the health and wellness to-do list of my family and of myself, shining a light on that. And also during each chemo cycle, I imagined myself showing the cancer cells the door. Like, okay, I get it. You're temporarily squatting in this beautiful body of mine, and you're here, and now it's time for you to go. And so that was a framing that worked for me 10 years ago. And it may be a little woo for some of you, dear listeners. I put it out there because I think most importantly, I want you to know that you can choose your narrative. You can choose the language that works for you. The pink washing of the whole of breast cancer also didn't work for me. Did I and do I still wear pink ribbons during Breast Cancer Awareness Month? Yes. Do I still reference pink? Yes. But it's just important to know that that doesn't represent everyone, and it's okay that it doesn't represent you, and that it's okay that you get to pick how you want to relate to this time in your life and to what you're experiencing and to the cancer itself. This language, the narrative that I chose, what it gave me that the battle metaphors couldn't, is it often made me laugh. During each chemo session, someone different accompanied me. My husband couldn't go to every chemo session with me because of his job. So my sisters-in-law, my close friends, someone different went with me to each session, and we chose a theme for each session. And depending on the theme, I dressed up and the person who went with me dressed up. So one session we had a cowboy theme, and we got cowboy hats and plaid shirts and cowboy boots because we were rounding up the cancer cells in my body, and rounding them up and showing them out. Another time we dressed as superheroes because I'm trying to remember now how I phrased it. We were leaping over the cancer cells in a single bound. And so that was born of my intentional reflection around the type of narrative that I wanted to have and that resonated with me during cancer. So if I ever felt defeated or worried or anxious, this language that I chose comforted me. And I couldn't control much during the approximately 9 months between diagnosis and the end of treatment, but I could control my cancer narrative. And that control, small as it sounds, really only related to the words that I used and that others used around me, was not nothing. It was mine. And, the cancer culture has a dominant language. You're not required to use it. You can choose the language that you want, that works for you, that fits for you, that resonates for you, that gives you hope and cheer. And it can be humorous, it can be dark humor, it can be sarcasm, it can be whatever fits for you. The words that you use to tell your story and to talk about your experience, not just tell your story, but to talk about your experience both inside your head and to other people, matter. Not because they change your diagnosis or your prognosis, but because you live inside of your body with the cancer cells every day, and you live inside your head and the words that you use and that other people use. That's why it matters. And some of us need permission to find our own words. Consider this yours. And let's take a minute, pull out your journals, and write down this question for you to consider now or later. What words have you been using to describe your cancer experience that feel like someone else's? And if you could choose your own language, not the ones that cancer culture handed you, what would feel more true? Okay. I want to connect the outer and the inner tools that I just shared with you. Taking stock is about clearing the outer path for healing. Using your words is about claiming the inner path. Together, they do the same thing. They give you back agency at the very moment when cancer is trying to take it. And this is what survivorship coaching is built for. This is the beginning of the ecosystem of healing. It's not something that we start building after treatment ends, but from day one. And the work of figuring out your own language, your own story, your own definition of what is happening to you, of taking stock, that is some of the most important work I do with the women I coach. If you want a partner in that, I'm here. Book a free discovery call at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. And now I want to take us full circle back to you, my dear listener, my sister survivor, to the woman who just got the news that you're still the woman who's still in that parking lot of that moment. I want to speak to you. I want you to walk away with something specific, 2 things that are yours from day one, not from when treatment ends, but from the day that you get the news. First, take stock. 4 buckets, 2 lists for each bucket. What serves your healing and what doesn't. Start there. And second, use your words, not the cancer culture words that you get handed after diagnosis and during treatment and during survivorship, but the ones that actually fit the inside of your experience. These tools, I want to say again, do not change the diagnosis, do not fix the cancer. They don't make treatment easier. They don't guarantee anything. What they do is give you back the one thing a diagnosis tries to take first, the sense that you have any say in what happens next. You do, more than you think, starting right now. And I want to speak directly to the woman who just got the news and is listening to this episode in the car or at 3 a.m. or in the waiting room before her next appointment. What I want you to know is that you have agency. You can choose. You don't have to go along to get along, or you don't have to get along to go along. Choose who you interact with, how much you interact, what you keep, what words you use, what words you want other people to use when talking about you and what you're going through. And write about it. Pick up your journal after this episode. Write down what you're thinking, what you're worried about, what you're scared about. Start making your buckets. Start drawing those boundaries. They can be temporary boundaries. They don't have to be forever boundaries. Start deciding what resonates and what works for you and what doesn't. And enlist the help of others, whether it's a coach or a friend or a partner. Enlist the help of others. Remember to ask for the help that you need, that you don't have to be the strong one through this. You don't have to carry the weight of this by yourself. And remember, sana sana, colita de rana. Si no sanas hoy, sanarás mañana. There's always tomorrow. You don't have to figure all of this out in 1 day or 2 days or 1 month or 2 months. Take your time, right? You just have to start somewhere. And now you have 2 places to start. Thank you, dear listeners, for following along, for listening to my episodes. It's hard to believe that we're 12 episodes in already. If you haven't already, please subscribe, follow along wherever you're listening to this podcast. Leave a review. It helps other survivors and more survivors find the show. And if this episode is landing for someone you know who just got a diagnosis, share it today. She needs these 2 tools right now. And if you are listening and you're the person who is ready to do this work and you're looking for a partner, come find me. Book a free discovery call at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'd love to be in your corner from day one. See you next week. Sana sana. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Sana Sana, the show that helps you heal and restore the parts of your ecosystem that were depleted after a breast cancer diagnosis. If you liked the episode, please leave us a rating and review so we can reach more incredible survivors, como tú, who want to heal with us. If you want to stay connected with our growing community, check out our Instagram at Eileen Lopez Tomei Coach and share what part of the episode touched your heart today. See you next week.